All right. Hello, everybody, to my first podcast. Thought I'd do a pop-up podcast today. Get my camera set. I ain't got everything. I ain't got my background set up like it ought to be. Anything like that. But we thought we'd go ahead and do our first podcast today that I was talking about the other night during our auction. So, hope everybody enjoys what we've got to share. Let me try to get it centered up here. Hope everybody enjoys what we got to share today. We're going to be sharing a little bit about what happened a year ago on the 13th of February. Today's podcast is Pushed by an Angel. And I think it'll prove to be interesting, and hopefully it'll encourage other people to stand and fight and be a survivor. That's what our podcast is about. It's about helping other people. We've not been able to do what we've been able to do in the past as far as having warming shelters and keeping the Samaritan boxes full and things like that. So we thought this might be a help to somebody. We want to be a help to somebody. And this is one of the ways that we felt like we could do it is we not only do auctions on here, but we thought, well, I've got the equipment here. We can do a podcast or vlog or whatever you want to call it. And India came up with that title the other night, Pushed by an Angel, and we'll explain that title here in a little bit. I believe that there are angels that walk amongst us. I think if you'll look in the scriptures, you'll see that that's a fact, because some have entertained angels unaware, and you didn't even know there were angels, did you? But there are, we have encountered angels sometimes throughout our lifetime. If you live long enough, you're going to encounter an angel in your life. And for whatever reason God puts that angel in your path, we don't know. Have no idea. I know why there was an angel put in my path a year ago on February the 13th. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit. Maybe let the crowd pick up a little bit, because this is a pop-up. It's not really been advertised and it's not been announced. But we've got a lot of things to talk about, and we'll get on that here in just a minute. And of course, some folks will be able to watch this recorded version of this, because it's going to stay on Facebook and it's going to stay on YouTube. I'm simulcasting on both Facebook and PayPal. So if you hear me talking to somebody, don't think I'm talking to myself, because I'm talking to somebody else over on Facebook, or I'm talking to somebody over on YouTube. Hello, Caroline Bunch. How are you doing today? Hope everything's going good for you and Norman. Thank you for tuning in to our first ever podcast. we've been doing live auctions for probably, I'm gonna say 6, 7, 8 years. Whenever Facebook started allowing you to do live broadcast, is when we started looking into it. Before that, we done live auctions in-house, where people would come and sit in front of you, and you'd hold the item up, and people would bid on the item. We met a lot of good friends over the years doing that, and we do live auctions on most of the time Monday and Tuesday nights. So we'll mention that a little bit, maybe increase our customer base a little bit during our podcast. I guess that's the correct terminology to use. Right now, my talking's not the greatest because during my treatments. Hey, Melissa Williams, how are you doing, honey? This is our first ever podcast, Pushed by an Angel. So we're hoping that we'll be able to help other people, encourage them, no matter what they're going through. No matter if they're going through a financial bind, a physical bind, a mental bind, we want to be a help to somebody by the use of our words and our stories that we're going to tell. So we was talking about angels a while ago. You read about them throughout the Bible, how that God has used angels many a times, and how that He is still using His angels to get His work done. And round about a year ago, I'm pretty sure it was on the 13th of February, 2023, we were setting up our flea market here in Scottsville, Kentucky. And by the way, my name's Jerry Whitney. They call me Uncle Jed. My wife's India Whitney. We have 10 beautiful children. We'll get to some of those stories here in a little bit, or in other podcasts later on. We'll get to some of those stories, and we'll let you get to know us, for those of you that don't know us a little bit better. But I am Jerry Whitney, better known as Uncle Jed. That's what everybody knows me as when I do my live auctions. And 61 years old, just turned 61. And we've had a really rough year, and that's probably what we're going to talk about today, the angel aspect of it. But we were getting our flea market set up and ready, and done had some vendors over there here in Scottsville, Kentucky. And now Scottsville, Kentucky is about 25 miles south of Bowling Green, Kentucky, where the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers are. And we're about 60 miles north of Nashville, Tennessee, sitting right on the border of Kentucky, Tennessee, and South Central Kentucky. But we're had a store, and we turned it into a flea market, so we was dealing with vendors. And for some reason or another that morning, I got to hankering for some country ham and biscuits. So I got on Facebook, which everybody knows you can get on Facebook now and pretty near find about anything that you want. So I didn't know who made country ham biscuits, or another thing I was wanting was real sausage. I wasn't wanting none of those frozen sausage. I think that might have been the main thing that I was looking for that day, was some sausage and biscuit that were made with the padded out sausage that you can do, the real sausage. It's got the real sage, the real peppers, the real spices in it that tastes like a sausage and biscuit or tastes like. And so I began my search, calling different restaurants around, seeing if they served the frozen sausage and biscuit or the regular sausage and biscuit. So I finally found a place that did the sausage and biscuit. So I got a couple of sausage and biscuit and a couple of country ham and biscuits. And I had a few vendors in mind that I was going to give one or two of them to, and then I was going to eat the others. And I had stopped and got me a big old Sonic Blast cherry limeade. And then I went and got my sausage and biscuit from Sam's, a little local restaurant here. And so I parked along the side of the street up here. And when I got out of my truck, I was parked, parallel parked, there on the side of the street. And that side of the sidewalk is all crumbly, and it's all sort of messed up. They're going to be redoing it later on here. That's one part of our town that they've not got to yet. But it was all crumbled, the sidewalk was. And so I went to step up on the curb, which leads, of course, to the sidewalk. The sidewalk's right there after you step up on the curb. And I tripped. And when I tripped, I had my hands full, so I could not catch myself. And I don't know how I done it. I parked there hundreds of times, stepped up on that curb, and never had failed. And that day I fell. Sausage and biscuit went one way. The cherry limeade landed, and just there was cherry limeade all over the place. And there was a rock that had flaked off that was sticking up on the sidewalk. And my chest area right here on my right side caught that rock. It landed just straight right there, and then that rock sort of penetrated my ribs. And all I could do was lay there. At first, my first thought was, that devil's knocked me down, trying to get me down, because my flea market business was really starting to boom. I'll have to let somebody get that phone for me. Probably want to pay that one bill. But yeah,
He was gone.
I was laying there, and one of my vendors had went out to her truck to smoke a cigarette because it was a little bit cold. So I was a hollering and a hollering, help me, help me,
Here for a few.
because I was really hurting, and just sort of, I thought I've hurt myself real bad. I thought I've messed something up real bad, just the way I landed, and that little rock penetrating right there. Matter of fact, the spot that it hit a year later, it's still sore. But I can't remember the lady's name. Maybe Caroline. Got out of her truck and came around and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I don't know." So she helped me up, and at that particular moment in time, I thought really the devil, one of his imps, one of his demons, had pushed me over. And you'll find out in some of my other stories how down through my lifetime I've had the devil work against me many, many times. And how that I've had angels to come in and to run interference. I didn't know that that particular day it was nothing to do with the devil. I didn't know that I was being pushed by an angel that day. Hence the title of our podcast, Pushed by an Angel. So I got up, and I was really hurting real bad, and I think I called Mama, called my wife India the first thing, told her that I had failed, but I thought I was okay. And she said, well, maybe you ought to go to the emergency room and get checked out. And I'm very hesitant. I've always been hesitant about going to the doctors, about taking medicine, about going to the dentist, about going to the emergency room. I've just always been hesitant about it. I've got a bad history of having panic attacks and anxiety and fear, and ER will bring on fear and panic attacks pretty quick. So I went in and got cleaned up a little bit inside my store, and I gave one of my biscuits away to somebody, one of them that was still left. I think two of them survived the fall that didn't hit the ground, and I don't remember if I ate the other one or not. So I went on throughout the day hurting really bad in my right lung. Now up to this point, guys, I had not been short of breath. I had not spit up any blood. I had no problems with my breathing, and didn't think nothing at all was wrong with me. So that night I went to bed really hurting. I think I took some ibuprofen or something like that. And about, I think it was 3, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, I was hurting really bad, and I got to thinking, what if I splintered something there and it's puncturing my lung? You know, because every time I take a deep breath, it really hurt bad. So I woke India up, or she was done awake from me moaning and groaning, whichever it was, whatever the case was. And I told her, I said, I'm thinking about driving to the ER at Bowling Green, which Bowling Green is a little bit bigger hospital. And there's a hospital over there at Greenview that I like better than any of the other hospitals. One thing, they get you in faster. It's what I was thinking. I wouldn't have to wait a long time out in the waiting room. And I told her, I said, you go ahead and stay here with the kids. I'll be all right driving. She wanted to take me, but I said, no, just stay here with the kids. I'll drive myself. One of us has got to get up in the morning and unlock the doors at the flea market. So I'll be okay. I'll drive. I'll take my time. And so I started my drive, my 25-mile drive to Bowling Green. Hurting, but I was okay to drive. I hadn't took any pain medicine or anything like that. And we, all the way over there, I had a strange feeling. Fear started to grip me. And at the same time fear started to grip me, there was a calmness. And I've never had that happen before, both at the same time. A calmness and a fear, both at the same time. Both of those emotions at the same time, fear and calmness. And I knew something was wrong besides my ribs being hurt. I just knew deep down inside that those doctors was going to find something else wrong with me. All the way over there, this was on my mind. And it was really overpowering more than anything else I'd ever experienced in my life. So we get over there to the ER, and they get me back pretty quick. And he looked at it and everything and felt of it. And I told him more exactly that it was hurting. Told him exactly what had happened, what had took place. And he said, well, we're going to run a CAT scan. Make sure you haven't splintered a rib or got a broke rib. And so we waited there in the ER. And guys, I'm at my store now. So while we're live, you may hear India taking care of some customers, which that's okay, and that's fine.
How are you?
Come pick up some
we're
She got
sitting there in the ER,
modeling clay.
and there's a nice nurse that came back and got me and took me back to the CAT scan area. It was either the nurse that done the CAT scan or one of their CNAs, people that roll you back. I can't remember now which it was.
Y'all
But
doing
they
all
were
right?
super nice to me.
Oh.
I mean, super nice. And I get back there, and of course, I'm a big cut up. I'm always
If you have any
joking,
problems with any of these, let me know.
and I'm always cutting up with
Thank you.
anybody I'm around. I'm just a big cut up.
Right now. You wanna be a
So
live celebrity again?
we
Yeah.
got in the room where they do the CAT
Have a good
scan.
rest of the day.
You too.
And I told that lady, the technician, I said, listen to me. Don't you get in there looking for nothing else. I got a hurt rib. And see, I already knew the wheels were spinning in my mind. I already knew I'd been pushed by an angel, some way or another. I already knew that. The wheels was turning. And I said it in a jokingly cutting up manner, not to find anything else. Now this is how strange everything went. We got the CAT scan done, and they took me back to the emergency room, the room that I was in there. And then that's when things really started getting weird.
Red, black,
Uh,
red, yellow, green, pink. or
they
brown.
left me in there for a while without coming in saying anything to me. And the doctor came in and said, "Would you like something to help ease your pain?" And I thought, that's sort of strange. He didn't ask me that before. Now he's asking me that. So I said, yeah. I said, that'd be all right.
Red,
Because I done had it set up to where Indy would come and get me if they'd gave me pain medicine or anything like that to where I couldn't drive. And so they brought me some. I told him, I said, I wish you gave me that before you took me back there and do that x-ray, because they about killed me. Or doing the CAT scan. I said, they about killed me. And he said, well, if you don't care, we're going to do a CAT scan with another CAT scan with contrast. So I'm thinking, must be something really, really bad wrong with my rib. They're wanting to do another CAT scan with contrast. But then my gear switched to they found something. They have found something else. It's not my hurt rib. I'm not kidding you guys. It was revealed to me before the doctor ever said what he said to me later on that night. So I'm going back there. This time the fear is really gripping my heart. And so I try to push it away. Think, no, maybe they're just, my rib is cracked and they're wanting to see how bad it is. And we get that done, come back to the room, and there's another strange thing that happens. The nurse comes in, the one that already had waited on me and took care of me, and she asked me what my wife's name is. And I had done told them my wife's name, I thought. It was all on the paperwork because she's my emergency contact. Why would she be coming in asking that?
You have a blessed weekend. You too.
And later on I would find out why. And I said, why did you, I started asking questions immediately. I said, why did you ask me my wife's name? No, I wasn't asking you your wife's name, I was asking you your last name. I thought, well, that makes even less sense, asking me my last name when you got it right there on the chart. So that's when the gears really started turning again, and I knew something was wrong. So I stayed in that room. They were waiting, what they were doing, they were waiting for India to get there, and the girls, my, at the time, 13-year-old and 16-year-old. They were waiting for them to get there. And I sat back there, and while I was sitting there, all of a sudden the fear that I had was starting to ease up. I already knew something was bad wrong. The fear was starting to ease up. And I started singing Christian songs. I can't remember the exact songs that I was singing, but I was humming them, and I was singing them, and I was talking to God. Now, during my podcast, you're going to hear a lot. You're not going to hear anything about politics. Politics is going to be off limits on my podcast. But you're going to hear a lot of about my faith in God. That's one of the most important things in my life, God and family and my friends. You'll find that out about me real quick if you don't already know that. But you will hear about God. You won't hear about organized religion, certain denominations or anything like that, or any kind of debating points on anything like that. But you'll hear a lot about my God, because He's my friend. He's my best friend. And all throughout my life, that's the way it's been. He's been my best friend. Whether I knew it at the time, at the age, at the moment, that's irrelevant. God has been my best friend. So getting back to the story, I'm sitting in there, and there's a peace that comes over me. It's a peace beyond understanding. I mean, completely beyond understanding. So India gets there, and the two girls, Ireland and Ruby, I'll give you those two children's name now, and later on you'll learn about my other children. But Ireland is 17 now. Ruby's 14 now, so at the time they were 16 and 13. And India comes in. And it's not long after they come in, they're all standing over here to the side of me, to my left. India's right here, Ruby and Ireland's standing sort of in front of me. I'm laying on the bed. And the young doctor comes in. And I remember, it's been a year ago, but I can still remember he come around and he sat down on the little stool and just looks at me and says, well, your ribs are not broke or cracked or anything, but you've got cancer on your left lung. And he says it's the size of your fist. I think that's the way he worded it at first. It wound up being a golf ball size. But he said it's treatable. I guess he was throwing that in to make me feel better or something. But he said it's going to be treatable. He was already reinforcing the positiveness that I want to reinforce to you guys, no matter what you're going through. It pays to be positive. I don't know what it is about our brains, but our brains, they put off all kind of different chemicals. The brain puts off signals to the body to do this or do that. It's telling me to be able to talk right now. It's telling me to be able to breathe right now. My heart to beat, my hands to be doing this or that, talking with my hands. I don't know sign language, but I'm sure that's something in there. And the thing that got me worse than anything is when he said those words, and I'll use that word less and less, the word cancer, and I'll refer to it as disease. It's what I'll refer to it more often because I don't like that word. I don't like to use that word. But for purposes of letting everybody know what went on and what took place, I'll be using that word today. And he said what we're going to do. He said we're going to keep you in here tonight and get an oncologist, heart and lung doctor, and run some tests. And when he said those words, you could have knocked me over, which I was already laying down, so it wouldn't have been hard to knock me over, with a feather. And I looked up at India, and tears was forming in her eyes. And I looked at my two little girls. And I wished he had waited till the girls wasn't in the room to give me that kind of devastating news. I really wished he had waited and asked them to leave the room. But it turned out for the best, I guess. And I just looked up at Mama, and I looked up at the other girls, and I was sort of speechless. I didn't begin to flip out and to say, oh no, and I didn't commence. I think tears welled up in my eyes. I mean, who's wouldn't? When you just been delivered that kind of devastating news. I'm telling you, you don't know. I mean, we hear of people all the time getting bad news from the doctor, whether it's with heart condition, whether it's with diabetes, whether it's with kidneys, maybe having to do kidney dialysis, or with your liver, maybe needing a liver transplant, or with cancer. We hear about that about all of our life. Somebody calls up, did you hear about so-and-so, they've got cancer? Or did you hear about so-and-so, they're needing a liver transplant? We hear these things all of our life, and it seems so distant when we hear about that, and so far away from us, so far removed from us. But when those words are spoken, when a doctor looks you directly in the eyes and says, you have cancer, in your lung. You talking about it's no longer far away. It's no longer somebody else. It's no longer a third person. It's you they're talking about. All the time that you felt sorry for so-and-so who had cancer, or so-and-so who's having to go through kidney dialysis, waiting on a kidney transplant. All those times you'd heard about it and maybe talked about it with your family, or talked about it with friends, or maybe even talked about it with that particular person that's going through it. It was still a third person. It was no longer that third person that that doctor was talking to or about. It was me. It was me. And he said it was a good thing that you fell. And it was a good thing that I fell. Or what we like to say, I was pushed by an angel. Because I hardly ever went to the doctor. Wouldn't had no call or reason to go to the doctor because I was having no symptoms of lung cancer. I was having no symptoms, no spitting up blood. I wasn't having any trouble breathing. Wasn't having any trouble talking. Wasn't coughing. I'd been quit smoking over two years. Been quit vaping over a year. So I had no reason to go to the doctor. I was feeling fine. I was feeling great. I was feeling good. And I fell on that sidewalk, and that caused me to go to the ER. That caused me to get the x-rays and the CAT scans. I'm trying to remember if they did both of them, because I had said just CAT scans, but I think they did do x-rays too. And they found that cancer in my other lung. The focus shift from me having hurt ribs on my right side to me having a potential deadly cancer up about center of my lung. We wasn't no longer worried about having splintered ribs or a cracked rib. Yes, we were still hurting, but we was no longer worried about that. All of a sudden it shifted to it being me, not my neighbor, not my cousin. And we'll stop there just for a second to let you, I'm going to see if there's any comments. Oh, thank you, Gus. I appreciate that comment. And appreciate your comment, New Marshall in town. And Caroline Bunch, you can watch the podcast later because I'm going to keep it on. You can finish up, but I appreciate you tuning in what time you had to tune in and listen to us. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in and listening. And I'm going to give y'all a little background. I'm going to stop there right to where the doctors told me that I had cancer. And I'm fixing to be admitted to the hospital. And I'm fixing to have to make a lot of phone calls. I've got 10 children. So I'm going to be making phone calls to my sons and my daughters, telling them this devastating news about their dad. That's still yet to come. But the year before this, get this, guys, a year before this happened, one of my workers, Sammy Hudgens, got cancer. He lasted 4 months. Good man, good fella. Big shout out to his memory today. Sammy helped me unload trucks, and I was always cutting up and aggravating with him, and he was always saying, "I'll shoot you in your foot." And I told him, I said, "You're like a woman, Sammy." I said, "One minute you're all happy-go-lucky, and the next minute you're just a fussing and complaining." And that's no throwback on women, because men are like that too, and Sammy was proof of that. But I loved him to death. But he got cancer. And about that same time, my sister got cancer. My sister Kay, and a big shout out to her memory. She had it somewhere up in here, and it was a really bad aggressive cancer. And my sister, she only lasted 4 months. And I had a brother during the time my sister, now this was in 2022. not a year, barely a year had passed before I got my diagnosis. And my sister Kay passed away of cancer. But before she passed away, I got a phone call one night at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, well, Kay's passed away. But it was my brother, I think, on the other end of the line, my other brother, telling me that Larry, my brother, had passed away, only 62 years old. He'd got pneumonia and don't reckon he had cancer or anything like that, but he got pneumonia and they went in the hospital room, found him dead. My brother, my closest brother in my age, there was 10 of us children. Sort of funny, I said I had 10 children, and Mama had 10 children. So he passed away, and we wound up doing the speaking at his funeral, which we do most of our family members that pass away. We wind up being the minister and trying to make the rest of the family feel comforted the best we can. And then it wasn't but a few short months later, my sister passed away. Now about 2, 3, 4 years before that, I had another brother that had passed away with cancer also. So now I've got all this on my mind, besides having 2 sister-in-laws within a year. Now there was Kay and there was Larry, my brother and sister passed away. Then there was Deltina, a sister-in-law. There was Karen, a sister-in-law, that passed away. Then I had a brother-in-law that passed away with cancer. So there was Kay and Johnny, both who have passed away with cancer. Before I ever got, see, I was always talking it was somebody else. Now that wasn't so far removed from me that I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know what cancer can do to you. It wasn't that far removed from me that I didn't know about it. It wasn't that I didn't know about chemo, didn't know about radiation, didn't know about some of the other treatments or some of the other effects it has on you and how devastating it can be to the immediate family, to the siblings. I knew how devastating it could be. And getting back to the ER, to where we was at for a story, all this is going through my mind. Am I going to last a few months like Kay did? Has it spread? What type cancer is it? Is it small cell cancer, which is really aggressive? Or is it the non-small cell cancer, which is not as aggressive? And all these things were playing through my mind. Am I going to, just be around here for a few months? And we celebrated our anniversary of that diagnosis. The next day, well, during that night, it turned into Valentine's Day early that morning when I finally got in the hospital room. And so I had to start making calls to my children, to my daughters, to my son. And that was a hard thing for me to do, was to say, hey, look, guys, I'm here at the hospital. Don't panic. Daddy's going to be okay. But they're saying I've got cancer in my lung. And I don't remember how all those conversations went, but there was a lot of crying on my part and their part that went on because they love their daddy and I love my children. So it was a lot that was going on, taking place in that short amount of time after the doctor had came in and said I had cancer in my lung. And the cancer wound up being golf ball size. So immediately they got me up, wasn't immediately, seemed like several hours later, they finally got me into a room. And we were in the room. Indy was there, the girls was there, and I think it done got on up into the daytime on Valentine's Day 1 year ago yesterday, because some of the other kids slowly started drifting in and surrounding my bedside. I want to tell you the biggest thing that anybody can do is have your family, your friends surround you. When you get devastating news, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart disease, whether it's diabetes, whether it's lupus or whatever the case is, you need your family to surround you, and you need your family to be positive. Understand this. The more your brain gets fed positivity, the more it's going to help fight whatever it is that is trying to destroy your organ, or trying to destroy your body, or trying to take your life. It's that important that you surround yourself with people that are positive, people that are looking at you saying you're going to be okay, you're going to make it. And somebody would say, well, that's just giving people false hope. Hey, Robert Warden, just seeing you jumping in there. Hello, you and Sandra. But that's not the case. And I always like to say false hope is better than no hope. Let me say that again. False hope is better than no hope. False hope is better than giving up. False hope is better than just going home to die, sitting waiting to die. It's hope. That word hope, H-O-P-E, is in there. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. It's better than the words no, N-O, hope, H-O-P-E. Let me say it again. It's better than no hope. Because a lot of people, excuse me just a second. A lot of people, and a lot of times, somebody will get devastating news like that. And all of a sudden, their brain switches into a gear. I like to call it granny gear, where everything slows down. And there's no hope. Because, look at me, that's the way I could have looked at it. Because just had a sister die of it, had a brother die of it a few years earlier, had a brother-in-law that died of it a few years back, had a wife to die of breast cancer 20 years back. And we'll get to her story some other time during one of the other podcasts. But I'm just trying to give you a picture, a snapshot of everything that was planted in my brain. I could have went in granny gear, into that no hope gear, but I had my family, my children. Let me tell you a little story about one of my sons. He didn't say a whole lot. It's Jerry Jr., one of my namesakes. He named his son Jerry Neal III, so I'm going to live on regardless. But he sort of waited till everybody went to the bathroom or went down to the cafeteria or whatever, and caught me in there by myself that next day. And he came over close to me. Big old tears came up in his eyes, and they started streaming down his cheek. And he got me by the hand, and he said, Daddy, he said, you're my best friend. He said, can't nothing happen to you. He said, I can't lose you. You're my best friend. You've been there for me. You've had my back. You're my daddy, and I'm not going to lose you. And me and him hugged. And I told him, I said, I'm going to fight, son. I'm going to fight. Those are the type people that we need around us. We don't need those around us that's going to tell us stories about so-and-so that had the very same thing you got, and they didn't last but a few months. Those type people will bring you down really, really quick. and put negative thoughts in your mind. And that's one of the hardest things to fight off
Yeah, that's fine.
are those negative thoughts. And it can be a TV commercial. It can be a movie.
Sorry.
It can be a picture. It can be a comment put on Facebook. It can be somebody relaying information. Oh, so and so passed away with this particular disease. That puts you're not going to be able to isolate yourself from all negativity. You're going to have to take it for what it's worth. Sure, so and so may have had the same thing that you got, but it's everybody's body is different. And you want proof of that? I'll show you my hand. I'll show you a close up here. You see that? That's my fingerprints.
Okay. All right. Love y'all, man.
That's my fingerprints. There's no other human in the world that's got an identical set of fingerprints. Never has been, never will be, that's got an identical set of fingerprints. And that's just a small example of how different we all are. No human being is the same person. Our DNA shows that. Sure, our fathers and ancestors may have some of the same chromosomes, and I'm probably not saying that right, guys. I'm not very well educated on DNA or anything like that, and I'm not a professor of that or a teacher of that, so I'll probably get a lot of terminology wrong during my podcast, and you can feel free to correct me because we're all here to learn. But no two individuals are alike. So two people can have the exact same diagnosis. Two people can have the exact same disease, appearing in the same spot. Two people can take the very exact same treatments and have different outcomes. Let me say it again. Two people can have the very same diagnosis, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart condition, whether it's diabetes, whether it's arthritis, whatever it is. Those two people can have the very exact same diagnosis, maybe even from the exact same doctor, but the outcomes are totally different. So we have to take that when we heard of Toby Keith dying the other day of stomach cancer and how he fought it for a couple of years. Automatically, negativity tried to creep into my mind. But Toby Keith was a different person than what I am. Totally different. So if you're sitting there today and you've been diagnosed with cancer, or you've been diagnosed with some other condition, and you're reading about all these other people that had the same thing that you got and didn't make it, or had a really rough time, you're thinking about that third person again. We're getting back to that third person again. And you remember before you got your diagnosis, before I got my diagnosis, they were just that third person. They was somebody that we thought, man, they got some bad luck going on right there. They got some bad things happening to them. So when we go trying to compare our condition, our diagnosis with anybody else, that's the wrong path to take. And that's where negativity will take you. It'll lead you down a path to where you want to give up, to where you want to quit, to where you want to say, what's the use, to where you want to say, I might as well not even take those treatments. They took them and they didn't make it. No two people, once again, let me show you. Look at your hand, guys. Take your hand and look at it for me and say these words. I am different than everybody living on the face of this earth. And my fingerprints tell me that I'm different. No other person has got the same fingerprints, so no other person has got the disposition that you have. No other person has the same DNA that you have. The exact same perfectly matching DNA that you have. There's some type, even father and son, there's differences in it. So, you are not your brother, you're not your mother, you're not your father, you're not your sister, you're not your cousin, you're not your best friend that had it. Hear me and hear me well. That's the first thing you need to get in your mind, that you are not that third person. You're you. And the way this disease is going to attack you is completely different. Completely different than the way it attacked that third person. So remove that third person from your life first thing. Even when you hear on the news, like we did about Toby Keith the other day, and immediately I'm thinking, here he is, a million multimillionaire, and if he can't beat it, how can I beat it? First thing that comes to your mind. And the first thing I had to do was remove that third person, Toby Keith, from my mind. And I loved him as a singer. I take my hat off to him and his family. He was a great person. Watched the interview that he done a few weeks before he died. And he talked about his faith in God. And he said the exact same thing that I've said. And I'm going to say it again right now, right here, during this podcast. How can anybody get devastating news like I got in that emergency room that night, and that I was going to get the next few days to follow? How could anybody have such devastating news and not have faith in God? Not have faith in the eternal life? Not have faith in a heaven? To be absent from this body is to be present with the Lord. How can somebody not have those words of encouragement to encourage you? How can you not have nobody to turn to and say, God, it's me. It's not that third person. It's not Aunt Sally. It's not my brother. It's not my sister. But God, it's me that's in trouble this time. It's me that this disease is trying to take my life. It's me. How can a person not have that faith in God and survive? Oh, I'd hate to have been in that position that night, in that ER, and that doctor come in pronouncing that on me and not have my faith in God. Or my family or my friends not having that faith in God. Where in the thunder would you turn to? Where would you go? Who would you talk to? Who would give you hope? That's one of the equations. If you've not got faith in a God, then that's no hope. Because I don't care if you beat whatever it is you're fighting, and you live 50, 60, 70, 80 years more, live to be 120 years old. Without that faith in God, you have no hope, son. You have no hope, daughter. You have no hope. And that night in that ER, without my faith in God, without me knowing that there's a God that created the heaven, that created the earth, that spoke me into existence, that knew me before I was in my mother's womb, then I would have had no hope. I would probably not be here today doing this podcast with you guys. I would probably done be gone. Because I would have went home and I would have just give up. Yeah, I may have took the treatments and may have went through some of the things that I've went through, but I would have just completely give up. I would have quit. Because I'm going to the grave, like Paul said, tomorrow we eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. When he was trying to teach, I think it was the Samaritans that believed in no resurrection. You know, if that be the point and that be the case, we might as well go ahead and eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. You know, if that's the case, if you've got no faith in God, then eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow you die. And of course, tomorrow may be 20, 30, 40 years down the road, or tomorrow could be tomorrow. So that's what Toby Keith, he didn't go through that big of long spiel that I just went through, but he basically said the same thing. He said, I don't know how anybody survives and continues on fighting without having faith in God. And I'm thankful that Toby Keith had a faith in God. He's with him today. The scriptures tell us that our spirit one day will return to the one that gave it to us. God gave us the spirit, and one day it's going to return unto him. And I'm glad that Toby's had a great life here on earth, had a great family, had a good support system. And I'm grateful for that. But I can't let the fact that he died and he didn't survive his stomach cancer, I can't let that bring me down to a point to where I say, look, there he was, famous, millions and millions of dollars. Could have had any treatment in the world, but he didn't make it. I can't let that bring me down, because why? Once again, going back, he's a third person. He's unrelated to me. He's unrelated, even if he'd had, which his diagnosis was different than mine. Don't know a lot about it. I know he was a fighter. And we don't know why some people don't make it. We have no idea why some people don't survive. I have no reason to give you today. I have no excuse. You may have lost a lot. I don't know why my sister just lasted 4 months. I can't give you the whys on it. The only thing I can do is tell you that they're all third persons. They're not you. If you're fighting a disease, and it don't necessarily has to be cancer, it could be other things that are just as deadly. We mentioned diabetes. I've watched people lose their toes and lose their ankles and lose their legs and lose their life with diabetes. It could be other things that are just as deadly. So you could be facing some of those things, and you're hearing about another person that didn't make it, or that's having it pretty rough. They're still a third person. They're not you. God made us so unique. You and me in India, we've traveled a lot in looking for storage units. We've traveled, except out, well, we've actually been out pretty far west, but not for a storage unit. But we've traveled north and south and east getting storage units. Been down to Atlanta, Georgia. Been to Mississippi. Been to Illinois. Been to Washington, D.C. Been all over this part of the United States. And you know, there's something I want to harp on this just for a few minutes. I like this. You guys like this about the third person? And that can apply to about any part of your life. You know, if you've got problems with alcohol, or you've got problems with drugs, getting away from sicknesses for a while, and you're hearing, well, so-and-so went to this drug center, so-and-so had the money to doing that, and it didn't help them. So what's the point of me trying? Once again, you're not that person. You're totally different. And getting back to that, if you traveled enough, if you look at people, and I look at people, I wonder when I'm out and about, and I even see somebody driving down the road, or I pass by somebody's house with the lights on, I wonder in my head what's going on in that family. What kind of problems are they having? What kind of issues are they going through? Are they sitting around as a family enjoying a family movie? Are they sitting around the kitchen table enjoying a family dinner? Those thoughts, I mean, you know, I don't know if you ever have those thoughts, but those thoughts go through my mind. But looking at people's faces, I mean, how many people, besides people that might be kin to me, resemble me somewhat? You know, besides my children, my siblings, maybe a cousin. You can't find two people that looks identical. Now, yeah, you'll pass somebody and say they sort of look like so-and-so. But how many different noses, how many different eyes, how many different mouths, how many different shapes of ears, can there be? God made it that way, to where we're always looking at a third person. And like I said, we've traveled a lot, and I've never seen that first person that's identical to somebody that lives here in Scottsville. To where I could look at them and say, I promise you I could have mistaken you for so and so. Now we see people that's got a resemblance in hair color, in their facial features and stuff, but they're always that third person. They're not that person. So I want to harp on this, and I guess that's why God's having me to stay on this subject, that you're not that third person, no matter what your situation is. Getting back to the drugs or the alcohol, you're thinking so-and-so couldn't make it off of it. I don't know how I can. Maybe you want to quit smoking, and you're saying, well, they tried the patches, they tried the nicotine gum, they've tried hypnosis, they've tried all this, and they can't quit, so what's the use of me trying? It's because you're not them. You are you. You are not the third person. So the same thing goes with sicknesses. That's how we can keep that negativity out of our brains when we do hear about somebody passing with the same thing that we had. Or I've heard so many people say this, so-and-so passed away and they were my same age. Well, that's about the only thing that y'all have in common, is being 44 or being 56 or being whatever age it is, because they're still a third person. Don't let that add fear to your consciousness. That's why it's so important to be around positive people. That's why I tell people that are trying to get off of drugs or alcohol, you can't hang around those same people. There's no way that you can be an alcoholic and hang out in a bar. It's literally impossible for you to do that, because you're no longer a third person then. They're no longer a third person. You're becoming a part of them. You become they all of a sudden. Love you, hon. You become they. They're no longer a third person. You're part of a group now. And same thing with drugs. If you're trying to get off of drugs, and God bless your heart, there's a mom that's worried about you, there's a dad that's worried about you, there's a co-worker that's worried about you, there's a friend that's worried about you. They're wanting to see you succeed. They're not wanting to see you fail. Sure, you've got some people, they live on drama. They like to see people fail. They like to see people give up. But I guarantee for everyone that likes to see you fail, there's 2 or 3 more that's wanting to see you succeed. And you cannot hang around those third people, that third persons. You cannot hang around them. You cannot be around them anymore. I don't care how close they were. I don't care how good a friend they were. I don't care how good a family member they were. You cannot be around them no more. Because you are you. And you can do it. You can be delivered. You can be set free from drugs. You can be set free from alcohol. You can be set free from sexual deviances. You can be set free from the different iniquities of this world. Whatever it is, you can be set free of it. But it takes hard work. There's not an easy button that you push. Even with faith in God. Even with faith. Thank you, Sandy Boardman. Hidden, love you too, Hidden. Appreciate you. There's not an easy button to push. And when I get more in depth in what I've had to go through over the past year, being pushed by an angel. I like that title, pushed by an angel. Sometimes you are pushed by an angel. May not be down on the sidewalk like I was, but you're pushed in a certain direction. You're pushed towards a certain person. You're pushed towards a certain organization. You're pushed toward something. that's going to help you out of your tight spot. So getting back, there's no easy button. For you to get delivered off of drugs, there's no easy button. For you to get delivered from alcohol, there's no easy button. For you to get healed and live a longer life, no matter what disease you have, there's really no easy button. The best button that you could ever have is that button that sends a prayer towards heaven. I was looking over my memories on Facebook the other day on my 1 year anniversary of my diagnosis. And there were so many people, so many of you guys that were talking to God for me. It reminded me of that movie when George Bailey on It's a Wonderful Life was in bad trouble. And everybody got to praying. God help George Bailey. He's such a good person. God help George Bailey. And they was all going up, floating up to heaven. That's when I was rereading them. That's what it reminded me of. There was people that was talking to God. And it wasn't a general prayer of just saying praying. They were saying, God, there's a boy that's in trouble. He needs help. God, Jerry Whitney, he needs your prayers. He's sick right now. Him and his family, they need your prayers. And I kept reading these over and over again. Where people, some people I knew well, some people I hardly knew. They were saying, there's this boy. He just got told that he's got cancer. And he don't know if he's going to live a couple days or months or years or what. But God, we're sending up a prayer for him. There were so many people that sent up prayers for me during that time. And I don't know that I read them all at that particular time, but I reread a lot of them the other day. And once again, there's that positivity, positive thoughts penetrating my brain. Because it's not all the time positive, Uncle Jed. And it's not going to be for you. There's going to be moments that you have a pity party. No matter what you're going through, you're going to have those pity parties. And guess what? I've heard so many people saying, quit having a pity party. Just quit it. No, don't quit it. Have one. Have one on Uncle Jed today. If you need a pity party, have one on Uncle Jed today. Just go ahead and have your pity party. There ain't nothing wrong with it. Why? Because you're not them. You're not that third person. You are you. And if you want to have a pity party, have at it. That's what I got to say. If you want to say, woe is me, you holler out, woe is me. If you want to say, I'm in so much trouble, I'm not going to make it. It's what's the use? What's the point? I'm getting what I deserve. You go ahead and you say all those words. Get it out of your system. Have a pity party. Because you know why? Tomorrow's going to be different. You're going to get all that pity out of your system. You're going to get all that negativity out of your system. And yes, it helps get that negativity out of your system. The pity parties do. The crying does. It helps. So don't let nobody sit around and tell you quit having a pity party. Quit feeling sorry for yourself. Well, go ahead and feel sorry for yourself. Tell them Uncle Jed said it was okay for me to feel sorry for myself. Uncle Jed said it was okay for me to have a pity party. I'm going to have one right now. If you want to have one right now, we'll just all have one right together. Let them talk about us. Let them say what they want. Because you know why? We're not them. They're not walking in our shoes. We're not the third person. Who are we? We are we. We're me. You're you. You're not them. Yes, a good cry does help. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. Robert, and I'll be adding you to my prayers to help you quit smoking too. And smoking ain't gonna keep you out of heaven. It may make you get there quicker than usual. Hidden, you make me smile too every time I see you on our auctions that we do. Or this is our brand new podcast called Push by an Angel. I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. But getting back to the easy button, And there is no easy button. I wished in that ER when I got moved into my room, I wish somewhere's, laying on that desk, laying on my bed, instead of seeing a button that you push for the nurses or seeing a remote control that you push to turn the TV on, I wish I had seen a big old red easy button to where I could have reached up there and hit that easy button and everything would have been okay. Everything would have been hunky-dory. Everything would have been fine. Everything would have been great. Everything would have been glorious. But there's not an easy button, guys. I don't know why there's not. There's just some questions that don't have answers. And the more you think upon them, the harder it's going to be on you. There's some questions that the scriptures cause to arise. And you want to ask the question, well, where'd God come from? And there's other questions. Why'd so-and-so have to lose their life? Or why did so-and-so have to go through losing their home? I can't answer. If you come to my podcast looking for those answers, you're not going to find them. If you go to a therapist, you're not going to find them. No matter where you go, who you ask, you're not going to find the answer to some questions. Some things are just a mystery that us as humans will never understand. And the more we think upon them, the more fear, the more anxiety that's going to accompany those unanswered questions. So you can't say it like I can't sit and ask God, why did this happen to me? I could come up with some answers. Maybe I'm getting what I deserve. Maybe it's because of this. Or maybe it's because of that. Maybe it's something I was born with. I could come up with all kind of answers, but probably none of them's correct. I'll know one day. One day I'll know when my spirits return to God. Then I'll look back and I'll say, oh, that was the reason. That was a pretty good reason, Lord. That's pretty good. I never would have thought of that. Matter of fact, I never did think of it. Pretty daggum good answer. So one day we'll understand. So right now, those unanswered questions, there's no reason to keep asking them and asking ourselves over and over again. But if you do, getting back to that pity party, getting back to that woe is me, if you have to ask them and you have to get it out of your system, it's okay to do so. There's no wrong answer. But at the same time, you may not find the exact right answer. Know this when you ask those questions. But it's all right. It's okay. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be okay. Let me talk to you a minute here. We've still got me stuck in the room they took me to after I got my diagnosis that I had cancer. I've not went no farther than that. May not get no farther than that today. But let me talk to you for a second. I don't know what you're going through, and I don't know what you've been through, but let me tell you, you're going to be okay. Regardless of the outcome, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay.
You want a celebrity spot?
It's all okay.
Clay, you want a celebrity spot?
I know for sure that it's hard. It's a really hard thing sometimes for you to go through some of the things that you're going through. I know that it's sometimes it seems impossible,
I got water too.
and it seems like you're not going to make it, and you just want to give up, and you want to quit. Don't do it. I don't care what the doctor says. I don't care what the lawyer says. I don't care what the fireman says. I don't care what the policeman says. I don't care what the teacher says. I don't care what mama says. I don't care what daddy says. I don't care what brother says. I don't care what sister says. I don't care what my friend says. I don't care what the devil says. I'm going to fight. to the bitter end. Because why? That's the way that God made us, to be a fighter. He didn't make us to be quitters. That's why I said it's okay to have a pity party. If you want to have a pity party, I think God looks down and just does like this.
Different things.
I really think He does when we go to having our own little pity parties, and we have our woe is me, and we feel sorry for ourselves. And it's all right to do that. It's all right to be like that sometimes. There's no point in trying to be perfect all the time. Ain't nobody perfect. Good night. Quit trying to be perfect all the time. And it's okay to cry in front of people. It's all right. If you need to cry, cry. Ain't gonna hurt a thing. If you need to have a bad day, go ahead and have a bad day. Go ahead and have it on Uncle Jed. I mean, chances are it ain't gonna get no better. And that's just the truth. If you're having a bad day, chances are it's not gonna get no better. Now, there's a slight possibility, just like when the weatherman says there's a slight chance of snow or rain, and it don't never happen. Like they're giving a slight chance of snow tonight, probably not gonna happen. But it's all right. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. It's more likely not going to get no better. So go ahead and have your bad day. And you probably never heard nobody give you this kind of advice before. That it's okay to have a bad day. That it's okay to have a pity party. That it's okay to say, woe is me. But it is. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Because like I said, if you're having a bad day, more than likely the rest of the day is going to be bad. You might as well go on to bed, watch your episode of Gunsmoke, and have your bad day. Wake up in the morning with a new outlook on a new day. Because the sun's going to shine tomorrow. And you know, the worst thing that when we're having a bad day, we automatically think tomorrow's going to be even worse. Or tomorrow's going to be another bad day. We go to thinking about that. And Jesus plainly told us, what are you worried about tomorrow for? Just think about today. And the things that's going to take place and happen today. He said, look at, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, look at the birds. You don't see them going around worrying about what they're going to eat. God feeds the sparrows. He feeds the birds. He feeds the ducks. Seen so much of wild geese flying the other day in their V pattern. And I thought, boy, God created them, looked them flying in that perfect V up there in the sky. They was making a racket. I looked around, I thought, what is that racket? And I looked, it was those geese or duck, or whatever you call them, flying in that V pattern. Flying back north, flying back towards warm weather again. And Jesus said, why are you worried about it? God takes care of the fowls of the air. How much more is He going to take care of you? So go ahead and have your bad day if you're going to have a bad day. Because truthfully, it's probably going to remain a bad day. It may turn out being a good day. I don't know. But tomorrow's going to come. Tomorrow's going to be a different day. Every second that we live, from the time I started this podcast, I'm trying to see how long I've been on the air. But the time I started this podcast, so many hundreds and seconds has went by, so many minutes have went by, and hours went by. That's life. We're living in something that's called life, and it's our life. I guess that's been my focal point on the whole podcast today, is not to think about yourself as that third person that you heard about in the past, or that you're going to hear about today, or that you're going to hear about tomorrow. You're an individual. Once again, look at your hand. Look at them. See those fingerprints? Ain't nobody else in the world got those fingerprints. You're you. You're your own person. And no matter what you get, no matter what's happening in your life, it don't have to be the same outcome that happened to that third person. That's all I want to say. Heard about somebody having a heart attack, and you're their same age, you're their same weight, you work the same occupation, you eat sort of the same food, and you go around worried all the time about having a heart attack or having a stroke. That's them. You're you. You're a different individual. That's why I want to get across people that's got cancer. They read on these cancer sites of so-and-so that fought cancer for 2 or 3 months and died. Same type cancer and everything. They fought cancer for a year or two, and this other person fought it a year or two. This other person had the same treatments. They're a third person. They're not you. You're still alive. You're still kicking. You're still 6 feet above ground. God bless that person that didn't survive. God bless their heart. They fought. They had positive outlooks. But still, they was a third person. They're not you. So don't you give up because the battle wasn't won by another person. Don't you be a quitter, because I guarantee that person that didn't make it, they never quit. 90-some% of them, they never quit. They fought to the bitter end. I know they did, because I know some people that I've talked to from the time they got it until the bitter end. They fought all the way. But still yet, you're not that person. You're totally different. Your body chemistry is different. The way your body fights different diseases is different. And I'm trying, the reason you see me looking up, I'm trying to watch comments, so if anybody's got any comments that they would like to add. But getting back, there's no easy button. But don't let that third person ruin your chances of survival. Your chances of getting better. No matter what it is, don't let that third person destroy your life. And I'm not talking about that third person in a bad light. Do not, I'll say that again. I'm not talking about that third person in a bad light. We don't know the reason God allowed things to happen and go the way they went. It's going back to that other thing we was talking about of those mystery answers, those mystery questions that we don't know the answer to. We don't know, and we will never know. So there's no point to keep asking them. But if you want to ask them, ask them. I want to tell you, when you're talking to God, that's about the closest to easy button you can get. When you're talking to God, just talk to Him. Just like I'm talking to you right now. Say, God, why did you let this happen? It's okay to question it. It's okay to ask God questions. It gets them out of your system. And God's okay with that. I'm pretty sure of it. He's a good God. He's a loving God. He's a caring God. He's our Father. And He's going to take care of His children. You say, well, He didn't take care of this one. Another mystery question. I don't know why. I can ask God why. I can ask God, why did I have to be the one to get cancer? What did I do to deserve it? I can ask all these questions. They're still they're mystery questions. I'm never going to know the answer. I'm going to never know the whys. So what I try to concentrate on is getting better. And no matter what it is that you're facing, whether it's a sickness, whether it's something mentally, physically, whatever it is that you're facing, listen to me and listen very closely. You can be a survivor. You can. And what you need to do is start off by being as positive as you can. You're not going to be all the time. You're not going to be positive all the time. You're not going to be. It's an impossibility for any of us to be positive all the time. And you've seen those people. They look like they're jolly all the time. They're laughing all the time. Ha, ha, hey, how you doing? How you doing, everybody? And just, ain't it a good, glorious day? And we don't know behind the scenes if they ain't having their own little pity party. So don't be fooled thinking, well, they're happy all the time. Don't be fooled by thinking that. It's okay to have a bad day. It is. It's okay to cry on somebody's shoulder. If you and your wife are having marital problems, it's okay to take one another in each other's arms and just cry. Just cry it out until that old love comes back. And you, before you know it, you won't even know what y'all was fussing about. You won't even know what the problems was. It's okay to have a pity party. Now, we're not going to have the podcast much longer. We've been going now. I wanted my podcast to be over an hour at least. And I think this podcast, Pushed by an Angel, if you missed the first part of it, go back and watch it. Watch the first part. Keep up with the story, because there's some good stories that's going to come on our next podcast. And I think we're going to leave it at that today. And our next podcast could be at any time. We've not got a set time yet. We've not got a good background yet or any of that stuff. Yes, you're right, Sandy, they are. So we don't know when our next podcast is going to be. And we do them live because I don't want to do anything recorded and then go back and say, well, I didn't pronounce that word right. I want to redo it. I want a retake of it. I just want to do it live and let it be raw and live and just as it's coming from my heart and my soul. I want you to receive it as that. Not something that I've sat around and thought about, not something that I wrote down or anything like that. I want it to be directly from my heart to you as I relay these stories to you. And on the next podcast, we're going to go ahead and get into some of the details. I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm living with one lung now. I only have one lung. My whole left lung is gone, and we'll explain why that took place. I am taking immunotherapy right now. It's a year-long process, so I've still got about 5 or 6 months, every 6 weeks of that. Just took it last week. There are side effects to that. It's not as toxic as chemo, and I have been through chemo already, and we'll get into some of that details on our next podcast. But I do appreciate you guys, and the main reason I'm doing this podcast, I hope it's been a help to you. I hope God gives me some words to say to you, and I hope you understood about the third person I'm talking about, and don't rely on that third person so much. That's your diagnosis, that's your prognosis. Don't rely on that so much, because you're a totally different person, and I think that's what the Holy Spirit led me through today, that you are your own person. You've got your own fight. You've got your own battle. You got your own warring to do, guys. You got your own angels that's helping you too. You've been pushed by an angel too. Like I said, it may have not been pushed down to the sidewalk for them to discover that I had cancer on the other side, not the side that got hit. But I honestly believe I wouldn't be alive today if that angel had not pushed me and caused me to go to the ER early that morning on Valentine's Day a year ago. And I've got a video to where I made that next day, to where I watched that video and I was like, good night. I was in bad shape. You know, I was talking about, I don't know if I'm going to be here a few months or not, and here it is a year later. And our reports, they've been good here lately. Of course, you've always got reports, and I'm always going to have scans, and cancer diagnosis changes your life completely. One of my main goals is get back to being me. I'm tired of being that third person. You know what I'm saying? But it's been a joy talking to you. The reason I've pinned the PayPal address up there, if you want to send any kind of donations or anything like that, I'm just going to mention it like one time during my podcast. It'll help us along. It'll help us with our podcast if we need to buy new cameras or if we need to have gas money going back and forth to treatments or whatever. And I'm just going to mention it one time in each podcast. That's our PayPal address, efleet10@yahoo.com, and send it friends and family. And don't unless God puts it on your heart to, or you feel led to. Don't send anything. This is free of charge, guys. But if you got the extra and you want to send it, that's why we pinned that on top of the Facebook page, and that's why we pinned it on top of there. That's our PayPal email address if you did want to send anything. And like I said, I'll mention it one time each podcast, and that's the only time I'll mention it. And that's my one time. And that's good enough for me. And I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Look forward to our next podcast. Hey, if you can, share this podcast as much as you can to let other people hear it. If you think it'd be a help to them, share it to that friend that maybe lives in another state that wouldn't be on my friends list. Share it as much as possible. And the more people that hears the podcast, hopefully the more people that it'll be a help to. Because it's been a great help to me today, being able to talk to y'all.
That's just what you need.
So we're going to end the podcast now, and like we're live in a store. So the people you're talking in the background, we've got people that's being taken care of. So you're going to hear those things in the background. But I appreciate you guys tuning in today. It's been a good, fun time. I feel help with it myself, and I hope you did. And we'll go to the Lord in prayer at this time. And we want to end our podcast with prayers. Heavenly Father, we come before you in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, and we're so thankful, so very thankful that you led these people to listen to our podcast today. And we hope in some shape, form, or fashion that we've been a help to them, an encouragement to them, an outlet to them for somebody to listen to and say, hey, you know, he's all right. I like listening to him. He's helping me out. And God, that's what I want to do. I want to be a big help to a lot of people. I know Toby Keith had that on his mind of starting a podcast to be a big help to people. Well, he's with you now, God. So on behalf of him and on behalf of a lot of people, and that's that mystery question, God, I want people to be able to see that we don't always know the whys or the hows, but we want them to sort of know how to get better and how to have more encouragement, and how to have more courage and how to be braver, and to realize they're not that third person, that you made each person individually and you made each person with different fingerprints. That shows how individually we are. And I'm thankful to you, God. Bless everybody. And those that are going through sicknesses and stuff, we pray for a healing for them in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Those that are having marital problems, we pray that that would be healed. Those that are having financial problems, we pray that that would be taken care of. Those that are looking for work, we pray that they would get a job. Those that are homeless, we pray that they would find a home. Those in the nursing homes, we pray that they would find happiness and somebody would go visit them and give them a big old hug from me, God. And it's in Jesus Christ's name we pray. And everybody said amen and amen. God bless you guys. We love y'all.
Amen.
We'll see y'all on the next podcast. guys, usually at the end of my podcast, I leave it on for a little bit. And Gus, I just read your comment, and I'm going to be praying for you. But I leave it up for a little bit in case you want to go back over some of the comments, or in case somebody leaves the link or anything. I just turn the audio off, and I'll leave the chat boards up for a little bit, just in case somebody does leave a link that'll be helpful, or somebody wants to say something or discuss something. So I will be leaving them up for maybe 5 minutes or something like that with the audio off. So if you're wondering why I was doing that. God bless y'all. I love you.